Hi, everybody. Welcome to this first presentation of the second day of the ATypI Tech Talks. Hello from Paris. I'm Jean-Baptiste. I will moderate this session today. And I'm with Yui Yoshitomi from Type Projects, live from Japan. Hi, Yui. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing well.
Thanks for being with us today. Yui, you're a type designer at Type Project.
Yes,
You studied at the Musashino Art University in Tokyo, from which you graduated. You
yeah,
worked with Derby Japan, and you also graduated later on from the Reading University. You also worked at URW Type Foundry in Hamburg, and now you're a type designer at Type Project Foundry in Tokyo, Japan. Is that correct?
yes.
Excellent. Thanks for being with us. Today, this presentation is about the FitFont technology, which enables the mixing and matching of different fonts and different scripts. And your presentation will be about how the technology works in practice and what are the new possibilities that it opens for people who want to be able to combine different typefaces into a single file. So I think I will launch the video, which will last about 20 minutes. Feel free to ask questions. Everybody in the dedicated Q&A section of the chat box. We also have a room chat, so feel free to type along and say hi. And we'll be starting now.
Hello everyone, I'm Yui Yoshitomi, type designer from Type Project. In this talk, I'm going to introduce our FitFont technology. This technology was once announced as adjustable font at ATypI Hong Kong in 2012. At that time, its function was only for the seamless adjustment of weights. Since then, we've continued its development to make it more convenient and versatile technology. We added new functions and made some tools for it. So now it's available with new functions and called FitFont. FitFont technology is a universal design solution which enables flexible multi-axis adjustment for weight, contrast, and width. When we talk about the seamless adjustment of parameters across multiple axes, most of you might imagine something like a variable font. However, our FitFont has different features from variable font. As you know, variable font allows you dynamic adjustment of multiple axes with sliders in applications. On the other hand, our FitFont provides designated instances only, because it focuses on providing the best options for users according to their intended use. It can also provide combined fonts of Japanese and Latin fonts. Those combined fonts are often used for corporate fonts projects. For instance, adjusted Japanese fonts can be merged with predefined Latin corporate fonts. Then they will be provided as single font data, which is user-friendly among various applications. The most important feature of FitFont is to provide Japanese fonts which harmonize well with particular Latin fonts. For such purpose, of course you can use variable fonts, but it can't be a replacement for FitFont. It's because, in the development of FitFont, we've been focusing on the functions to find the best balance between different scripts. The process of matching different scripts is called fitting in our technology. The variety of parameters in our font library is the foundation of ideal fitting between Japanese and Latin fonts. For example, in Axis font family, the width variation such as condensed or compressed was incorporated in Japanese fonts. For TP Mincho, we adapted the idea of contrast variations into Mincho-style typeface. Also, TP Sky is the first Japanese font family which has width and contrast axes besides weight axis. Furthermore, we recently released the fat face font called TP Sky Model Black in 2020. Due to the dense and complex structure of letters, we've been having difficulty to design Japanese fonts with heavy weight. Usually, black or heavy weight in Latin fonts is much darker than the heaviest weight of Japanese fonts. This difference in weight variations has been one of the big issues of fitting Japanese and Latin font families. However, TP Sky Modern Black is the strategic product which could achieve its extremely heavy weight by widening the space between strokes. Thanks to the heaviness of this black weight, we could increase the range of weight variations in fitting with Latin font families. Besides the seamless multi-axis adjustment, FitFont has another function to combine different scripts into one font. FitFont service can combine Latin fonts from our partners with our Japanese fonts, and they can be provided as a single font. On our website, you can simulate various combinations between Japanese kana, kanji, and Latin. By adjusting their weight, contrast, and width with slide bars on screen, you can find the suitable combinations for your purpose. This simulator can show 1071 variations for Axis Font and TP Mincho, and for TP Sky, 14,144 styles, which is composed of 34 weight, 26 contrast, and 16 width variations. Those numbers are just defined for the sake of convenience on screen, so we can say technically seamless interpolation and generation is available. Along with the two main functions I introduced earlier, we newly developed some tools which allow us to provide combined fonts with better quality. The first one is an auto-fitting tool with Japanese and Latin fonts. This tool has been developed to reinforce the process of fitting. It helps to find a suitable instance for Japanese FitFont, which fits well with a designated Latin font. For the auto-fitting, the tool acquires the data from targeted glyphs, such as stem width, glyph width, or cap height. Those values will be measured to find possible candidates of Japanese fonts. And it calculates an ideal scaling factor or the values of baseline shift for the Latin font. Referring to the information provided by the auto-fitting tool, we eventually look at the sample of mixed typesetting and fine-tune the result. Although we need to use our own eyes to get the best options at the end, the auto-fitting can save a lot of time to compare countless numbers of instances one by one. The other tool is for merging features of Japanese and Latin fonts. Based on our previous experiences, we developed the tool to integrate GPost and GSub features effectively. Merging Latin fonts and Japanese fonts requires attention to the handling of OpenType features. It is because during the process of merging fonts, Latin glyphs which already exist in Japanese fonts will be replaced with ones in Latin fonts. This change of glyph forms has an effect on some OpenType features for Japanese font. For example, some of the glyphs will be changed from full width to proportional width. The change of glyph width will affect the features for vertical typesetting. Also, Latin fonts often need to be scaled when they are combined with Japanese fonts. So the changes brought by the scaling should be reflected in GPOS table. The feature merging tool was developed to meet those requirements and combine different scripts without having any technical problems. As we looked at what we can do with the current FitFont technology, here I'm going to introduce some cases that we provided fonts produced with FitFont. The first case is that we adjusted our Japanese fonts so that they fit well with Latin fonts provided by our client. For French car manufacturer Alpine, the Latin font family called Alpine Ascension was primarily developed by Production Type. Due to their needs of Japanese language support, we provided the customized Japanese fonts called Alpine Axis based on our Axis font family. Their weight was adjusted in accordance with the weight of Alpine Ascension family by using FitFont functions. The second one is the example that we combined our Japanese fonts with the other Latin fonts. For Denso, we adjusted the weight of Axis fonts according to the Latin fonts designed by Contrapunct. The Latin font was integrated into the Japanese font with engineering so that it can be provided as single font data. In the last case, we designed original Latin and provided it with Japanese fonts. For the branding font of TBS, which is a Japanese broadcasting company, the newly designed Latin and Japanese from Axis FitFont were merged and provided as TBS Sans TP. In addition, for their corporate font, fonts with suitable parameter values were chosen from Axis FitFont and TP Mincho FitFont, and they are provided as TBS Gothic TP and TBS Mincho TP. Not only those cases, we also provided customized fonts or corporate fonts for many other international companies such as Sony and Santry. As we have seen in those examples, FitFont can respond flexibly to a variety of cases with its versatile functions. Based on our experience in providing fonts with FitFont technology, we are planning its further development. What we are currently working on is adding another parameter for multi-axis adjustment. Earlier in this talk, I introduced TP Sky as the first Japanese font family with 3 axes: weight, contrast, and width. As the next step of this family, we are developing its 4th axis, and it will be released in the near future. The 4th axis is the counter axis. The counter we say here doesn't only mean the inner space or white space of letters. It also refers to the space or distance between strokes in the skeleton of each letter. If you see the skeleton of letters in Japanese fonts, classic style fonts usually have lesser counters with a tight look. On the other hand, modern style fonts tend to have wider counters. You can see the difference in this slide. We think the idea of continuously changing the size of counters will be the first challenge for Japanese fonts. As you can see in this image, counter size affects a lot on the mood and character of design. So, the effect we can get by changing the counter axis is very interesting. And it's worth researching to enhance our technology and library. When it comes to the fitting with Latin fonts, the new axis will definitely expand the range of fitting and add more variety to the combinations. Actually, this talk is the first time we introduced this new axis. So we hope you got interested in this idea and you will like our new font with the counter axis when it's released. Type Project has been developing the FitFont technology for years and trying to enhance it by applying our experience and knowledge. Nowadays, as we are living in the globalization age, we assume the needs for matching Japanese and Latin fonts will increase more and more. To meet the needs, we think the flexible adjustment of multiple axes and also merging different scripts will be essential functions. So we believe our FitFont technology can be a powerful solution for responding to users' requirements, and it gives them more options. We will continue to develop this technology to enrich its functions. So we hope we can show you further progress in the near future. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or views, feel free to share in our Q&A session.
So feel free to ask questions in the Q&A section of the chat box in the lower right corner of your screen. We already have quite a lot of questions popping in that box. Thank you everybody for contributing. While I'll check on them in a minute, I wanted to ask first maybe, so your original announcement was from 2012 at ATypI Hong Kong for the FitFont technology.
Yeah.
And variable fonts were announced only 6 years later. I wanted to know if this announcement of variable fonts changed the way you were envisioning FitFont, and if it gave you new perspectives on FitFont and the way to evolve it.
I think, as I explained in the talk, like we are just focusing on like producing the designated instances for like the intended use of the users. So it's, as you know, like for the variable fonts, like the users can like simply adjust all the like axes, like, and you can have like more like options to like adjust the like parameters on your own. But our point of view on developing this tool is like how we like enhance the functions to find the best combinations between like different fonts or different scripts. So it's the big difference between our service and what the variable fonts provide. So maybe because of the announcement of the variable fonts, we could get more views of like expanding our service. But at the moment, we are like thinking in the different way in this service, I think.
Okay, thank you. Well, in that way, this is connected with Dave's question, who's asking what would be needed to make TP fonts as OpenType variable fonts?
Yeah, at the moment, we are of course interested in like providing like variable fonts or developing variable fonts, but we can't say about the concrete plan about that. And also, of course, if the user needs is there for the variable font, we will try to like develop, but at the same time, we also have some technical issues to be solved to develop Japanese variable fonts, as you know. So we should consider more, and it may take more time, I think.
Understood.
Yeah.
We have a question from Sophia, who's asking about the fourth axis, the counter axis, which I'm pretty sure everybody was interested in. Sophia's asking, compared to the extra X-transparent parameter of type networks parametric fonts for counter space, are there any difference?
Oh,
I'm not aware of I don't know about that
me
parameter.
Neither. I'm not
you
sure
neither.
I need the like details of this X-transparent parameter. So
Understood.
yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll need clarification from Sophia.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Also, someone's adding that extra is horizontal only, and your counter axis is X and Y.
Yeah.
So maybe as a complement to the initial question about variable fonts, can you tell a bit more about the technical issues that the Japanese font technology and script is facing in when turning Japanese fonts into variable fonts?
I think it's not only about our like foundry. I think for like many of like Japanese like other like type foundry, like they have similar like problems, I think. But the first problem is, I think, the number of the character set. It's really huge, you know. So even for the variable font, you need some kind of masters to like develop the different axes and stuff. So maybe for the big type foundries who already have like different variations in the contrast or weight or width, it might be easier to combine them and then make it as a like variable font. But sometimes the interpolation won't work like really nicely or something like that. So it's one of the big issues to develop the variable font for Japanese fonts. And also like when you think about the vertical typesetting, like when you expand the width of letters, like for Latin fonts, like if you typeset like horizontally, like the width of the letters will be changed, for the width contrast. But if it's set on vertical in Japanese font, like the Latin font will be rotated. So if the Japanese font increase the width in horizontal direction, but the Latin font should be like, like the cap height or ascender or descender should be longer rather than like expanding their width. So those kind of like complex like typesetting system and stuff also affect some technical issues.
What would you say the average character set? How big is the character set for an average branding? Like let's say a branding typeface.
Branding typeface
for brands for the identity of
like
for instance TBS.
TBS like I think more than 10,000 glyphs.
Okay, so if we do the math with the 144,000 instances that you mentioned, that's a lot of potential glyphs.
Yeah.
Right.
So
excellent. Would you say this technology is applicable to other scripts such as Korean and Chinese?
I think like it might be possible, but currently we don't support other scripts. We only support like Japanese Latin, especially for the grids we provide from our library. We only support Japanese and Latin. But if the customer like provides some Latin fonts which has another script like Greek or like I don't know other Indic scripts or whatever, we will consider for individual cases. So you can like feel free to ask us like if this kind of font with this script is possible to be combined with your Japanese or something like that.
And would it work? Would you say that it's possible that the FitFont technology potentially can adapt Korean scripts or Chinese scripts in their flexibility? I mean,
yeah, in the design flexibility, it's possible, but like there might be some like technical issues for the merging features or something like that. You know, each script has different features for their own script, so we don't know if those like script features will conflict each other or not. So we should test those stuff. So we need some trials and experience to make it possible, I think.
I've seen in your presentation that the case studies that you showed were car manufacturers and large broadcasting companies. Would you say that the FitFont technology is accessible to smaller customers?
Yes, of course, like, because this fitting, it can be done like just from single font, not only for the big families or something. So maybe for their branding font, maybe they have like one Latin font which is designed from their logo or something. We can just find the suitable Japanese instances for this single font as well.
Okay. So in practice, do you have what's the turnaround time for a small family?
If it's only for like just fitting, just we adjust our Japanese font and provided it as an independent Japanese font, not combined with Latin font. It takes maybe about a week. But if we want to combine it to be a single font letter, we need at least like 2 months or something like that. But it really depends on the character set or the design. So,
because from your presentation, it looks quite easy and quite fast. So can you tell the audience a little bit what is happening during those 2 months? What is the longest part of the process?
You know, I introduced the auto fitting tool, but like it's just a support for finding the best option. So we don't really rely on only this like auto fitting tool. So it's just for helping us. So at the end, we should see the result, which is like provided by this auto fitting tool, and then like compare like which like option is the best by our own eyes, on looking at the sample sheet of mixed type setting. So, and then also to combine and merge the features. Even though we have a tool to do that, like we should do the QA and stuff. So that's the reason why we need these 2 months for that.
Okay. Yeah. This is connected with a remark by Dave, who's mentioning that it's important to see variations as integrated with broader typography settings like tracking, line height, font size. Does your QA also have a part where you test the actual typesetting between the different scripts, not just the fitting, but also how it works in practice?
Of course, I think yes. Like because we are merging features, and then those like open type features are really like related to the like appearance of the typesetting, as you know. So if you like ask us to merge Japanese and Latin fonts, at the end, like we should test those like final appearance of the font.
Of course. of course.
And also it includes the baseline shift for the Latin fonts or something like that. So how it's like different from the baseline of the Japanese and stuff.
Can you tell a little bit more about the baseline shift? Because not everybody may be aware of what it means.
Because like usually when you just type Latin fonts and Japanese fonts in the same size in the same text box, like Latin font appears a bit lower than the Japanese font. It's because of the settings of the descender or ascender or metrics in the font. So usually the Latin fonts should be a bit like should be shifted a bit higher, if I remember correctly, to get the like correct appearance on the like the balance between Japanese and Latin fonts.
Okay.
So that's why we call it like shifting like baseline
shift.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So in the end, the FitFont is more a service than a final product, right?
Yes.
The
it's
customer.
Only for our, it's only for our internal use. So currently, don't have any plan to publish this as the software or something like application or so. Yeah, it's like a service.
And the customer, Tom is asking, so the customer receives the specific instances from the fitting tests, right?
Yes.
Is this correct?
So you can also like test it on our website, and then you can just define, oh, we need this like appearance. So if you like write down the like parameter values from our simulator on the website, and then if you tell us, we can just produce the instances with that values. And also you can just ask us to find the best solution on our side. We can just try to find the best options.
Yeah, I remember when FitFont was announced, it was one of the first services where you could live test and live preview with sliders way before sliders were cool. So that was very early on. Gunnar is asking, I wonder if the fitting done by human eyes today won't be done by AI in the future. Are you considering... Are you working with... Yeah.
Like, like for example, like even for the auto fitting tool, like we can't use only one logic for it, because like if you want to fit Latin font which has contrast, it means the vertical font stroke is much heavier than the horizontal stroke. And if you want to fit this with our TP Sky, which has contrast variation, it's okay to just measure the vertical and horizontal stem width, and then find the instance which has similar values for each like horizontal and vertical like stem width. But if you want to like fit those Latin fonts with such as axis font, which doesn't have contrast variation, which only has like weight or width variations, if you just measure the stroke width and then find the same values on the vertical like strokes or something like that, the Latin fonts which has contrast look much more lighter than the fonts, the Japanese font without contrast, as you can imagine. So maybe we should find another way to compensate the heaviness, lightness of the horizontal strokes with the heaviness of the vertical strokes and something like that. So even for using the auto fitting tool, we need to like think about different possibilities on human plane. So I'm not sure about, I'm not really familiar with how the AI works, but I'm not sure if they can calculate those like complex stuff like easily or like correctly. So I think even though if we use the AI to support, we should use our own eyes at the end. It's my point of view. Yeah.
Understood. I have a non-technological question.
Yeah.
I was wondering, you said very early on in the presentation that FitFont was also designed to combine a corporate font with an instance generated by FitFont. From your experience, how does that work in terms of licensing? Because it's combining two different inputs with potentially two different rights attached to them. So what would be your advice in the best way to engage in that topic for anybody interested in FitFont?
A good question. So for the Latin fonts you provide to be merged with our Japanese font, you should have the permission from the licensor of the Latin font. So especially for the corporate fonts, in our experience, like maybe the corporate font was like originally designed for for that company.
A custom font.
In that case, the customized font. In that case, the company has the right to like edit or like change the content of the fonts. So in this case, like we can just adjust our font and then merge it into one font. But if you don't have the license to change the content of the fonts, it's really difficult to merge it with our Japanese font. So the customer should make sure that you have the right to do that on your end. And then, that's the...
Everybody remember, it's never a good idea to modify fonts if you don't have the license for that.
No.
All right. Thank you. Maybe I have a few more another questions before, unless anybody in the chat has some more questions for Yui. Can you? Okay, we just have a question from Sandra. In your presentation, you show custom type project for special clients. Are you open to work with foundries selling Latin fonts in order to provide the foundry a Japanese version of their retail Latin fonts?
Oh, I think yes, because we have like your production type or the commercial type as a partner of Latin Latin font design foundry. So if some of the other like type foundries in the other country are really interested in like cooperating with us, like we are welcome to be a partner. So
and in your presentation you showed samples from Typotech, production type, commercial type. Maybe one question before we wrap up, unless you have more to ask to Yui. What's the roadmap for new features for FitFont? You just unveiled a new counter axis today. What do you have in store next?
Unfortunately, we can't like say the details because it's very confidential. So the fourth axis, the counter axis, is the newest one that I can only announce publicly. But we will continue to develop it. So we can't say the details. Sorry, but we will like announce it when it's like ready to be released.
Excellent. How many people work on the FitFont technology?
For FitFont technology, like most of the designers and also engineers are working on as a team. So in my company, the designer are like 6 or 7 and 2 engineers. So most of us are working on it. Depending on the project, we just like divide the work and then do it together.
Okay. I just put in the chat a link to the FitFont service from Type Project. I think we're going to. Yes.
I will type our contact email so that you can email us if you have for the questions or inquiry.
Sure.
Should
So
I put it on the question chat or
put it in
general
the general chat.
general
Yes.
chat? Okay. Yes. sales@typeproject.com. You can just email us via this email address.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Yui.
Yeah,
thanks
thank you
everybody
so much.
you're welcome. Thanks for being with us today. Thank you everybody for being with us today as well. You feel free to join the Hangout room where the fun continues 24/7. Hope you had a good time. Right now, live is the variable font hinting, the VTT workshop with Mike Dugan. You can also join the fun in the Hangout space, as I just said. Good evening and good night if you're in Japan and in Asia. Good afternoon if you're in Europe. Good morning for the East Coasters and the West Coasters. See you in one of the other rooms. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.